Soft rain. It falls like silk threads over the ancient stones of Angkor, each drop carrying the scent of earth, of memory, of something eternal. You close your eyes, and you can hear it. The distant whisper of the forest, the heartbeat of time itself. In this rain lives the story of Kikilu, a name once whispered between two souls who met beyond lifetimes. It is said that when the monsoon returns to the land of Cambodia, the spirits of old lovers wander again through the temple ruins, seeking one another beneath the sound of falling water. Tonight, you will hear their story, not told in haste, but breathed out gently, like incense smoke curling through the night. Slow, calm, rhythmic, as if the story itself were meditating beside you. Inhale, exhale, let us begin. Long ago, in a small Khmer village wrapped in the arms of rice fields, there lived a woman named Soriya. Her name meant the sun. She worked as a weaver, her hands gentle, her eyes always lost somewhere between dream and silence. Every morning, before the world woke, she would walk barefoot to the lotus pond. She would kneel by the water, press her palms together, and whisper a prayer to the spirits of her ancestors. Let today be kind. Let love find its way to me, softly, like the morning mist. Her voice barely touched the air, but the universe was listening. Far away, in another village shaded by bamboo, there lived a man named Kikilu. He was a woodcarver, patient, quiet, with hands shaped by years of carving gods, elephants, and gentle smiles into teak wood. People said Kikilu could bring life to anything he touched, but he never carved his own heart, because it belonged to a dream he once had, of a woman whose voice called to him through the rain. For many seasons, their lives moved like two rivers, near but never crossing, until one fateful monsoon night. Lightning split the clouds over the fields. The villagers ran for cover, but Soriya, she stayed. She stood in the open, letting the rain soak her hair and clothes, as if she were waiting for something. And then she heard it, the soft, hollow tapping of a bamboo flute. A melody played not for the world, but for one heart. She followed the sound through the rain, past the shimmering paddies, until she reached a small shrine, old, half buried in moss. There, beneath the shrine's broken roof, sat Kikilu. He was playing his flute to the rain. When she stepped closer, he looked up, and in that single moment, both of them knew. They had met before, not in this life, perhaps, but in another. The recognition was deep, wordless, ancient. Their eyes spoke first, the rain softened. The air thickened with jasmine. She sat beside him, and for a long time they said nothing. Only the flute spoke, and the rain answered. When she finally whispered, her voice trembled like candlelight. "Have I known you before?" Kikilu smiled, his voice gentle, slow, each syllable falling like a drop of water. "Yes, you were the one who waited by the river, and I was the one who never came." Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of recognition. 1,000 lifetimes seemed to breathe between them. The story of Kikilu and Soriya would begin again, this time with the promise whispered between them. If the gods grant us love, let it not be for forever, but for now, because now is all we truly have. And in the stillness that followed, the rain stopped. Only the soft dripping of water from the shrine's roof remained, like a lullaby from another age. Somewhere in the distance, a monk's bell echoed through the forest. Soriya closed her eyes. Kikilu reached for her hand, and the world fell silent. The night after their first meeting, the rain stopped. But the sound of it, that quiet rhythm against the earth, seemed to stay between them. It echoed in Soriya's chest as she lay awake on her mat, listening to the sigh of the wind. It hummed through Kikilu's flute, long after he had stopped playing. It was as if the world itself refused to forget that moment beneath the shrine. The next morning, Soriya went to the market early. She bought a small woven basket, and inside it she placed offerings: a lotus flower, a candle, and a folded leaf containing rice. In her village, when one felt their soul awaken, they made an offering to the Banyan spirit. The great tree was believed to hold memories of people, of promises, of love too strong to die. When she arrived, the tree's roots coiled like serpents around ancient stones. Incense smoke curled upward in slow, sleepy spirals. She knelt down, pressed her palms together, and whispered, "If it is fate that brought him to me, then let the winds carry our names together." Her voice was soft, almost like a lullaby to the earth, and far away, as if carried on the same wind, Kikilu paused his carving knife midair. He felt something stir inside him, like a thread tightening, pulling him gently toward the temple fields. By sunset, he found himself walking toward the Banyan. He didn't plan to. His body just moved, as if memory had taken control. And there she was, Soriya, sitting quietly beneath the tree, eyes closed, her hair dancing with the evening breeze. The golden light of dusk rested on her shoulders like silk. He stopped a few steps away, afraid that any sound might shatter the fragile magic between them. But she opened her eyes and smiled, as if she had been waiting. "You came," she whispered. "I think I was always meant to," he answered. They sat together beneath the banyan tree. Around them, the cicadas sang. The world slowed, like a breath being held. Kikilu reached into his satchel and pulled out a small wooden carving, unfinished, smooth in places, rough in others. It was the shape of two hands clasped together. "For you," he said, his voice almost trembling. "I started carving this long before I met you, but now I know whose hands they are." Soriya's eyes glistened. She touched the carving gently, tracing its lines. "You carved what my heart remembers," she said softly. "A promise we made, somewhere beyond time." She placed the carving in her lap, then took his hand in both of hers. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Only the tree above whispered, its leaves rustling with the secrets of hundreds of lovers who had come before. As twilight deepened, the monks from a nearby pagoda began to chant their evening prayers. Their voices, deep, rhythmic, echoing through the humid air, seemed to wrap around them like a spell. Soriya closed her eyes. Kikilu watched her lips move in silence. When she opened them again, she said, "In Khmer legend, when two souls meet again, it means they were separated by karma, not by choice. The gods give them another chance, but never forever, only for as long as they truly see one another." He nodded slowly. "Then I will see you, with my whole heart, for as long as the gods allow." A small tear fell from her eye, but it wasn't sorrow. It was surrender. Together, they lit the candle she had brought for the offering. The flame trembled in the wind like a heartbeat of light. "If the flame lives through the night," she said softly, "then the spirits have accepted us." They sat beside each other, the night growing deeper, their shoulders barely touching. The air smelled of frangipani and wet earth. Every breath felt sacred, every silence full. When the moon rose, silver and calm, Kikilu took out his flute again. This time he didn't play for the rain. He played for her. The sound was warm, slow, almost human, as though the flute itself remembered her name. The melody drifted across the fields, down the river, through the ancient stones of the temples. Somewhere, unseen, the spirits of lovers long gone smiled in their sleep. Soriya listened with her eyes closed, her head leaning gently toward his shoulder. For a moment the world disappeared. There was no past or future, only now, and the sound of the flute, and the warmth of her palm resting against his. When the last note faded, she whispered, "Do you think love can live beyond the body?" He smiled, slow, tender, like the breath before a dream. "If it is true love," he said, "then the body is only one of its homes." The candle flickered, its light steady, defying the breeze. Somewhere deep in the earth, beneath the roots of the banyan, something ancient stirred. The quiet approval of time. And for the first time, both of them felt it. Not just love, but the presence of something larger, a destiny, or perhaps a continuation. That night, the villagers saw two faint figures walking down the old stone path, hand in hand, their shadows moving as one. Some said it was the lovers, Kikilu and Soriya. Others whispered it was the spirits of the past, finally reunited. But the wind, carrying the faint sound of a flute, told a gentler truth. It was both, the living and the timeless, the now and the forever. Beneath the ancient banyan, the candle burned all through the night, and when dawn came, the flame still lived. Morning arrived soft and golden, like the first exhale after a long prayer. Mist curled over the fields, wrapping the world in a silk veil. Soriya woke to the gentle sound of water dripping from the eaves of her hut. a slow, rhythmic patter that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the earth. She touched the small wooden carving on her bedside mat, 2 hands clasped together. It felt warm, as if it still held Kikilu's presence. Outside, the sky was a pale watercolor, and the air carried the scent of lemongrass and wet bamboo. The world, for a moment, felt utterly still. She smiled, remembering the night beneath the banyan tree, his flute, the candle, the feeling that love was something ancient, not born but remembered, and yet, in that peace there was a shadow, a whisper from her dreams that wouldn't fade. Each night since meeting Kikilu, she dreamed of the river, wide, silver, endless. In the dream, she stood on one side and he stood on the other. When she called his name, her voice would carry across the water, but he never answered. He only smiled, slowly faded, and became the reflection of the moon. It was beautiful and terrifying. That morning, she visited the old monk who lived beside the lotus pond. He had lived through many monsoons, his face folded with time and peace. Soriya knelt before him, palms pressed together. "Venerable," she said softly, "I see him in my dreams, always across the river. What does it mean?" The monk smiled, a patient, knowing smile. "Dreams," he said, "are the language of the soul. The river is not outside of you, child. It is within. When you see him across it, it means your hearts are joined, but your karma is not yet finished." Soriya lowered her gaze. "Does that mean we cannot be together?" The monk's voice was calm, like wind through reeds. "Love is never lost," he said. "It only changes form. Sometimes the river must separate 2 souls so that both can learn to swim." His words lingered in her like incense smoke, gentle but heavy. That evening, she went to find Kikilu by the riverbank, where he often gathered wood. He was sitting quietly, carving again. This time, a small figure of a woman holding a lotus flower. When he saw her, he smiled, and for a moment, all her worry disappeared. "You look troubled," he said, laying his carving knife aside. "Did your dreams speak to you again?" Her breath caught. "How did you know?" He looked toward the flowing water, eyes soft. "Because I've seen the same river," he said. "In my dreams, you stand on the other side. You call my name, and I can't cross to you." Their silence hung heavy. The sound of water filled the air, rippling, eternal. Then Kikilu stood, took her hand, and guided her closer to the river. "The monks say this river was once a goddess," he whispered. "She fell in love with a mortal man, but the gods forbade them to meet. So she became the river, always flowing, always near him, but never able to hold him." Soriya's eyes filled with tears. "Is that what we are?" He smiled gently. "No, we are what happens when the goddess learns to forgive the gods." She let out a soft, trembling laugh. He touched her face, slow, careful, reverent, as though his fingers were tracing history itself. The sun was setting, painting the river in hues of amber and rose. They sat on the grass, their shoulders touching. The air shimmered with the hum of evening insects, and the water glowed like melted gold. "Sometimes," Kikilu said quietly, "I think love is like carving wood. You can't rush it. You must listen to what it wants to become." Soriya smiled. "And what do you think we will become?" "Maybe a story," he said, "told every time the rain returns." The way he said it, soft, honest, unhurried, made her heart ache with both joy and fear. Because stories, like seasons, always ended. As the light faded, she saw something in the river. A shimmer, a flicker of movement beneath the surface. At first she thought it was the reflection of the moon, but then she saw it more clearly. A shape, pale and human-like, gliding through the water. It was a woman, her face half hidden, her eyes glowing faintly like pearls. "The river spirit," Soriya gasped, clutching Kikilu's arm. He followed her gaze, and for a moment, the world seemed to still. Even the crickets went silent. The spirit rose slightly above the water, her form shifting between mist and light. Her voice came like a breeze, not spoken, but felt inside their bones. "You were lovers once, and the river took you. You loved again, and the river watched you. But remember this, what flows must one day return to the sea." Then she was gone. The water rippled once, then stilled. Kikilu and Soriya stood frozen, holding each other's hands. The air felt alive with unseen eyes, as though the ancestors themselves were listening. Finally, Soriya whispered, "Does that mean we'll be taken again?" Kikilu looked at her, calm, unwavering. No, it means we must not be afraid to flow. They watched the river until the stars appeared. Neither spoke again, but deep within, something changed. The kind of change that cannot be undone. That night, as they walked home, the sound of the river followed them, gentle, eternal, a reminder that love, like water, always finds its way back to itself. Night had returned to the village, soft, silver, and fragrant with the scent of wet soil. The river slept now, its surface glimmering beneath a thin layer of moonlight. But somewhere, in the hush of the lotus pond beyond the temple, something stirred. Soriya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the spirit of the river, her pale face rising through the water, whispering words that melted into ripples. The words she couldn't quite understand, yet felt deep inside her chest. She sat up, listening. The room was silent except for the distant croak of frogs and the rhythmic chirping of crickets, the lullaby of Cambodian nights. Outside, the moon hung low and swollen, painting the fields in shades of pearl and silver. And then she heard it. A flute, soft, slow, fragile, like a memory floating through mist. Her heart began to race. Kikilu. Without thinking, she wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside. The earth was cool beneath her bare feet, damp with dew. The sound of the flute came from the lotus pond, where they had first met when she prayed to the spirits weeks ago. She followed it, her breath slow and shallow, her body moving as if guided by something unseen. When she reached the pond, the air was thick with moonlight. The water's surface shimmered like glass, filled with the reflection of endless stars. And there, standing in the center of the lotus blooms, was Kikilu. But he was different. His feet didn't touch the water. He stood above it, his form glowing faintly, soft and transparent, like mist shaped into a man. Soriya froze. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Kikilu. He turned slowly. His eyes were warm but distant, as though he were looking through her, not at her. You came, he said, his voice echoing gently, as if spoken from within a dream. Where are you? She asked. Are you here? He smiled, a slow, calm smile that carried both joy and sorrow. I am here, he said, but not as before. The river called me. The spirit said it was time to remember. Her hands trembled. Remember what? The water rippled. A soft wind passed over the pond, carrying the scent of lotus and rain. Kikilu's figure shimmered. For a moment, she saw something behind him, images flickering like candlelight, a battlefield, a temple in ruins, two souls, a man and a woman, reaching for each other across flames. We have lived this before, Kikilu whispered. Long ago I was a soldier, and you were the healer who saved me. We promised to meet again, life after life, until we could love without fear. Soriya's eyes filled with tears. The memories began to surface within her too, faint and golden. The scent of smoke, the sound of chanting, the touch of his hand centuries ago. And now? She asked, voice trembling. Have we finally found peace? Kikilu looked down at the lotus flowers glowing beneath him. Not yet. The river says love is not peace, it is awakening. And awakening is never easy. The moon broke free from a drifting cloud, casting silver light over them. For a heartbeat, she saw him clearly. His face illuminated, his expression serene yet sad. She took a step forward, the water cool against her ankles. Then let me awaken with you, she whispered. Even if it hurts, Kikilu reached out his hand. His fingers passed through hers like light through smoke, and yet she could feel it. Warmth, tenderness, the faint pulse of connection. The lotus pond began to glow. The flowers opened fully, releasing tiny orbs of golden light that floated upward like souls remembering their way home. The air vibrated softly, a sound like the echo of bells underwater. Kikilu spoke again, his voice slow, breathy, meditative. In the next life, you may forget my name. You may not remember my face, but when you hear the sound of the flute in the rain, your soul will know. Tears rolled down Soriya's cheeks. Don't leave, she whispered. Stay, even as a dream. He shook his head gently. Dreams end so that we may wake, and when we wake, we must live. The light around him began to fade. His form became translucent, melting back into the shimmer of moonlight on water. "Kikilu!" she cried. His voice drifted toward her, faint, peaceful. "When the lotus blooms again at midnight, I will return." And then silence. Only the sound of rippling water and the soft sigh of night returning to stillness. Soriya stood there, her feet sunk in the cool pond, surrounded by glowing lotus petals. The flute's final note lingered in the air like the scent of rain. Slowly, she knelt, cupped her hands, and lifted the glowing water to her forehead. It was warm, alive. She closed her eyes and whispered to the spirit of the river, "If he must go, let his memory stay within me. Let every breath I take remind me that love is not possession. It is presence." A single lotus petal drifted toward her, stopping just at her knee. She picked it up and held it to her heart. The moon slid behind a veil of cloud, dimming the world once more. The night deepened, and from somewhere far away, or perhaps within her own chest, she thought she heard his flute again. Faint, gentle, eternal. Weeks passed. Then months. The dry season came. The skies bleached pale. The river shrank to a thin silver ribbon. Every morning, Soriya walked to the lotus pond. The flowers no longer bloomed at night, and the water had grown quiet. Still, she waited. Each evening she placed a candle at the edge of the water, and each night she whispered the same words. "When the lotus blooms again at midnight, you will return." But the lotus did not bloom. The flute did not sing. Only the wind replied, brushing her cheek like a ghost's kiss. Sometimes she wondered if it had all been a dream, the river spirit, the carvings, the warmth of his hand. But then she would touch the little wooden figure he had given her, 2 hands clasped together, and the warmth would return, pulsing faintly against her skin. Alive. She kept living. She tended her garden, helped the monks sweep the temple steps, taught the children how to weave palm leaves into stars. Life continued, slow, quiet, tender. And yet, in every droplet of morning dew, in every echo of wind through bamboo, she felt him, Kikilu, always near. One night, the wind shifted. The air grew heavy, that unmistakable scent of change. Thunder rumbled beyond the horizon. The first storm of the season was coming. Soriya stepped outside, the world glowing faintly in the humid dark. The frogs began their songs, and the fireflies danced like tiny souls returning home. She lifted her face toward the wind, whispering, "He's coming." The rain began, gentle at first, like a memory tapping softly on her shoulder, then stronger, steadier, wrapping the world in silver. She walked through the rain toward the lotus pond, barefoot, the hem of her dress clinging to her legs. Each step was heavy, soaked, yet her heart was light. When she reached the pond, she gasped. The lotus flowers had bloomed, all at once, dozens of them. Their pale petals glowed faintly under the rain, like stars fallen to earth. The pond shimmered, alive with reflected light, and then she heard it, the flute, soft, distant, carried on the wind and rain. Her hands flew to her heart. The melody was familiar, slow, rising, like a promise breathing again. It came from the banyan tree. She ran, through the wet grass, through the mist, her breath catching in rhythm with the song. When she reached the tree, the candle she had once lit there still stood. Though long melted, its holder glowed faintly, as if remembering the light. And beneath the branches, there he was, Kikilu, whole, solid, rain glistening on his hair and shoulders, his flute at his lips. He lowered it slowly when he saw her. For a long moment, they just stood, 2 souls in the downpour, the earth between them trembling with life. She took a step forward. "Is it you?" she whispered. He smiled, the same soft, patient smile. "The rain remembered me." Her tears mixed with the rain as she pressed her palms together. "You came back. I never left," he said. "I was in the wind, the water, the waiting. You only had to listen." She closed the distance between them and touched his chest. His heart beat beneath her fingers, slow, steady, human. He was real. "The spirit told me," he said, "that love which does not fear time will always return." The lotus bloomed again, and so did I. They stood beneath the tree as the rain poured, their bodies soaked, the world a blur of silver and sound. When he took her in his arms, it felt like the universe had exhaled, like a circle closing, soft and complete. Later that night, when the storm eased, they sat together by the riverbank. The air smelled of wet leaves and life reborn. The moon peeked through drifting clouds, shining on the calm surface of the water. Soriya leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you think the spirit will take you again?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "No. The river does not separate what has learned to flow together. They listen to the quiet hum of the world, frogs, wind, the whisper of rain dripping from the trees." And then Kikilu said softly, "Love is not about staying. It's about returning." Again and again, Soriya smiled, eyes closed. "Then we are eternal," he nodded. "Not as souls trapped in the past, but as hearts that have learned to listen." She looked up at him, the man who had been her stranger, her spirit, her memory, her home. And with a trembling whisper she said, "Then promise me one thing. When I am old, when this body forgets, play your flute once more, so that my heart may remember before it sleeps." He smiled, pressing his forehead gently to hers. "Always." Years later, when the lotus pond was overgrown and the temple bells had faded into age, villagers would still speak of a night when the rain sang. They said 2 figures had walked hand in hand through the storm, one in white, one in gold, and where they stepped, the lotus flowers bloomed. And sometimes, on the quietest evenings after the rain, a flute could be heard, far away, sweet and faint, like love remembering itself. Those who heard it said they felt peace, as if, for a moment, the world and the heart were the same thing, and beneath the old banyan tree, where the roots twisted around ancient stones, a small wooden carving still rested, 2 hands clasped together, its surface smooth from years of rain, its promise unbroken,